Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to try and find the midpoint of a line segment. So what is a midpoint, right? So let's say I have a line segment that joins your points. So you have point A and point B, okay? Now if I want to find the midpoint is a point that is exactly in the middle, right? It divides this distance between A and B into two halves, right? So if this distance, for example, was say 4, then this distance here would be 2, and so would this also be 2, right? So let's say that's our point C. So we're going to figure out today, given 2 points A and B, how do I find the coordinates of that midpoint C, okay? So let's take, suppose, right, A had coordinates x1 and y1, and B had coordinates x2 and y2. Okay, so in that case I would have this is A with coordinates x1, y1, and this is B with coordinates x2, y2. Suppose that M was my midpoint, right? So let's say this was my midpoint, M. Okay, and it had coordinates. We don't know what they are, so we're going to write some variable x and y here. So then the question is, how can I write x and y? If I know x1, y1, x2, y2, how can I figure out what x and y is? Okay, so in this case, think about what if A was, let's just take 3, 0, and B was, say, 5, 0. Okay, and I said I want to find the midpoint of these 2 points. Well, here you can take a look, and pretty easily I think you could say that the number that's exactly halfway between 3 and 5 is 4, and so I could say that this one would be 4, 0, right? Or if I had A to be, say, 0, 4, and B to be, say, 0, 6, again, you could look at, well, this is 0, so that'll probably just stay 0. And in case of the y coordinate, you can say that the point that's exactly halfway between 4 and 6 is 5. And so for this one, we could have 0, 5, right? But what if it was not that easy, right? What if I had, say, 3 and 4 quarters or 5 and 6 quarters? How do you find the midpoint in that case? So if you look here, right, 3 and 5, right? How do I get 4? One way, obviously, in this case, it was easy, but I could also think of this as an average of 3 and 5, right? If I add 3 and 5 and I divide by 2, right, I'm going to get 3 plus 5. And if I divide that by 2, that's the average or the mean, and that's going to give me 8 over 2, which is equal to 4, and that's exactly what I have here. Okay, same way here, if I added 4 and 6, that'd give me 10, and then I divided by 2, that'd give me 5. Okay, so in a way, finding a midpoint really is taking the average of the 2 coordinates. Okay, so let's write down that as a more formal formula. So the coordinates of the midpoint MXY of the line segment with endpoints A x1, y1 and B x2, y2 are given by MXY is equal to, like I said, we're going to take the average. So I have x1 plus x2 over 2, and then y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay, so those are the coordinates for the midpoint. Okay, so let's take an example. So what we want to do in this example is we're going to find the midpoint of the line segment that joins the points -2, 3, and 6, -5. All right. So let's recall our formula for midpoint was mxy equals x1 plus x2 over 2, and then y1 plus y2 over 2. All right. So the question is, which point is x1, y1, which is x2, y2? It doesn't matter. You can take this one as x1, y1, and this one as x2, y2, or you can take this one as x1, y1, and this as x2, y2. It's going to give you the same value. So I'm going to call this x1, y1. I'm going to call this point x2, y2. Okay. So if I go ahead and plug the values in, x1 is -2, so I have -2 plus 6 over 2. In terms of the y's, I have 3 plus -5 over 2. So -2 plus 6 gives me 4, so that's 4 over 2. And then 3 plus -5 is basically 3 minus 5, which is -2 over 2. Right? And if I simplify that further, I get 2, -1. Okay? So the coordinates of the midpoint are 2, -1.